I'm 43 and life has happened, but looking back over the past 20 plus years and the challenges, and how do I bring hope in a really difficult place of life? As I said, as you said, I've said this is definitely triggering because we're talking about something of sexual assault and sexual abuse awareness. And that is something as a survivor myself, we don't know how to put that together a lot of times, and we don't know what we're doing as we go through the healing process. And as he sat down, he noticed that my soda had emptied. I had drank the rest of it. So he offered to take my soda back and refill it. Back in that time, we were also told a lot about watch your alcoholic beverage. No one really talked about watching your water or your soda, because it was always about the alcohol. It wasn't about whatever could happen. So he came back, I began drinking my drink, ended up that he put a roofie in my drink. And he was actually there to bait me because he found out I was a virgin. He asked about the purity ring I had on. And because I was such a person of faith and I believed, well, this is going to be what I'm going to hand to my husband on my wedding night, that just kind of sent a trigger for him to go, okay, this is my perfect person for what's about to come and what we need, which was going to be initiation later on that evening.
Do you remember me? I am the part of you that is wise and alive, that is pure love and beyond your limiting mind. I am the you that is inspired, the you that is creative, the you that has true power. Are you ready to remember you? Hello, and welcome to Remembering You, the show. I am your host, Ellie La Liberté, and I am a published author of 2 spiritual books. And this show is associated with my new book, Letters from You to You, Awaken Your Power Through Conversations with Your Higher Self. This show is about reconnecting to your power, the truth of who you really are. The guests on this show are authentic human beings who have stories to share with us about how they navigated through difficult challenges and illnesses, and also how they uncovered the higher part of themselves. May you feel inspired to go into your own healing journey and remember who you really are. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Remembering You, the show. I am your host, Ellie La Liberté, and today I am with a very special guest. Her name is Tanna Evans, and she is from Texas. She just has an incredible story to share with all of us, and I'm very honored to have her on the show today because it's a very touching story. And I'm just going to say hi, Tanna. I hope that you're doing well. Thank you for being here.
Definitely, and thank you. I am doing well. Just
Perfect.
staying out of the heat because it is hot here in Texas.
Definitely hot. Hot here in Canada as well. But I'm sure it's not as hot as you. That's for sure. So yes, we had a kind of like a nice chat before, and I got to know a little bit more about your story, and I'm happy that I had a chance to get to know most of or a lot of the details. But I do believe it's a very important conversation to have. And as you were as well, mentioning before, maybe it's a very triggering story for some. So I really love your approach on all of it, and I'm just excited. Well, excited is not the word, but I mean, yes, okay, I'm excited for it to be very inspiring. That's what I'm going to say for all of those out there who needs this hope and this courage. So I would love for you to just go ahead and start with the beginning and just tell us what has happened and how you navigated all of this.
So, yes, thank you, Ellie. One of the things that was very important to me when I heard the title of Back to You was just that whole point of I'm 43 and life has happened, but looking back over the past 20 plus years and the challenges, and how do I bring hope in a really difficult place of life? As I said, as you said, I've said this is definitely triggering because we're talking about something of sexual assault and sexual abuse awareness. And that is something, as a survivor myself, we don't know how to put that together a lot of times. And we don't know what we're doing as we go through the healing process. So I am grateful that you are opening your podcast to a conversation that needs to be had. And that's why I was saying it's triggering. So I want people to be aware of what we're discussing. And this is my own personal story. And I'll just start from the beginning of that. I'm adopted from a long time ago. It was an international adoption. So I had a really wonderful family growing up and just very successful. We would do a lot of ministry, a lot of different things that helped my faith be shaped, and probably what really got me through a lot of this in the process, as well as I trained as a chaplain while I was going through this process. So giving that picture of where we start. In college, I was the good girl. I didn't do anything outside. I was also in the mindset in the 1990s, early 2000s, there was a mindset that, especially as women, we should hold purity. We were even given purity rings to make it significant that we were virgins and to hold that proud and dear. Yet at the same time, that was also the downfall for this situation. I'd gone to a party. I was older. It was my junior year. I had just accepted the intern's position as a hospital chaplain intern for my internship for college. I was a junior. That being said, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try something. It was near the end of the school year. So I was like, I'm going to try something, step outside of my comfort zone. There were some girls on campus that we had all discussed this. And this is back when we didn't have Uber. So we had to actually have designated drivers. And I became that designated driver for that night. Thinking that alone is part of this, is so many people think, oh, well, if you were drinking, you deserved it, or you weren't. It's all about power and control. It's not about the situation or how you're dressed or what you're doing. No. It's a determination, a predetermination, a premeditated word I'm looking for. Got there, found the area that was designed for the designated drivers. There were snacks, sodas, different things. And because I was very naive, I had just sheltered myself to the point of do I want to kiss before I get married? Do I not? That was very much of that purity culture. So there was challenges in those times and places. Got to the counter, found another gentleman there. He was wearing a crucifix. So I thought, okay, this is a person who I may or may not could trust. We struck up a conversation, got our way. As we sat down, and this was a little house, a little bit far enough off of campus where alcohol could be served, but not too far away where we were going to be driving way too long. And as he sat down, he noticed that my soda had emptied. I had drank the rest of it. So he offered to take my soda back and refill it. Back in that time, we were also told a lot about watch your alcoholic beverage. No one really talked about watching your water or your soda, because it was always about the alcohol. It wasn't about whatever could happen. So he came back, I began drinking my drink, ended up that he put a roofie in my drink. And he was actually there to bait me, because he found out I was a virgin. He asked about the purity ring I had on. And because I was such a person of faith, and I believed that this is going to be my what I'm going to hand to my husband on my wedding night, that just kind of sent a trigger for him to go, okay, this is my perfect person for what's about to come and what we need, which was going to be initiation later on that evening. We go outside, I get hot, I get sweaty. What the drug does, or roofie does, is just kind of makes you dizzy, lightheaded, and overheated. And of course, too many people in a small house anyway, it was a normal thinking of let's get outside, get some fresh air. Because he was the person to debate me, he figured out what my interests were, different things. And there was a new complex being built, a lot of new housing structures. We had family in the real estate arena. So we were both, and he had positioned himself as an architect. So we thought he just definitely played into everything. Very, very smart in one way, but very, and I'm being naive. We walk down a little bit, we start making out. Something I also say often is it's not your actions, because we have, especially as women and men too, we have a right to continue our behavior if we want to do something of intimate reaction or intimate nature, cuddling, hugging, kissing, whatever that looks like. But when we say no, that's where it needs to stop. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference for a lot of people, because they'll say too, oh, well, you did this, so you set them up to allow this to happen. As soon as the no happens, that's when the process should stop of the attack. Mm-hmm. We get there. I'm just dizzy, lightheaded, and he starts going for my jeans. I was wearing a blouse and jeans that night. I wasn't wearing anything that would be provocative or considered easy access. It was jeans and a blouse. And then I remember I got more dizzy and just more heated and more just woozy. I was beginning to blacken out of consciousness. Someone pulled me from behind and pulled me to the ground. Then after that, I heard, just because of that blacking out, the pieces that people will say they remember pieces, but they don't remember everything. I remember someone saying, you have to do this to get in. And then someone whispering in my ear, honey, it'll be faster. It will go faster if you're still. And that was, I woke up, not really sure what had happened, went back to the party thinking, okay, I probably just walked out, got fresh air, fell asleep somewhere, because these houses were nice. They weren't just simple houses. They were nice construction that had been happening. Went back, saw the girls, we went back. And in that process, the next morning I woke up bruised, bleeding, questioning, but still not sure, because I didn't do anything. I kissed the guy. I didn't do anything else, because again, my mind was fuzzy in that process. And I didn't want to say anything because I was on a very religious campus that was also very legalistic and had very strange objections of single mothers or single women who had children. It was a challenge there. So I didn't really know what to do. I had this internship that had been based upon, hey, here is your internship. You're a wholesome person in their eyes. I'd gotten it. I was the youngest that had gotten this position. I was 21. And then a few weeks later, I find out I'm pregnant. And the realization hits that something did happen. And I even questioned it. So I was like, I'd worked in hospitals since I was 16. I'm going, maybe the test is wrong. So I went back and got multiple tests, and they kept showing up positive. So now here I am, terrified, because I don't want to lose my scholarships. I don't want to lose things. And then also this internship. So I'm sitting here going, I have to hide all of this. And the guilt, the shame, the anger was all there. A few months later down the line, I end up miscarrying. And that was a struggle and a challenge. I was in my second trimester. And from there, it was just one of those things of, now where do I go? What do I do? So I kept my job. I kept the internship to the end of that season. And from there, I ended up in a bad situation with a roommate that was unhealthy. And from there, I ended up in a marriage that wasn't perfect, and finally had to find myself, because I brought all of this unhealthy stuff with me. Ended up having 3 children with my first marriage, and eventually discovered that, oh, those are things that I need to find help. Got out of that marriage that wasn't good for me. We wanted to co-parent. We just got one who graduated high school and will start college in a couple of weeks. So we're moving forward. Life does move forward, but it moves forward after the healing process and taking. I know we talked earlier about, I don't know if we ever fully heal, but we work towards healing on a daily basis.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. And what I wanted to know too, and I think that you touched on this as well, is that not only did you had a miscarriage, but you told me as well that you almost died in that miscarriage, right?
Right. So it was because I was hiding the fact I had that I was pregnant. I didn't want to do anything. And it's always interesting how God, the universe, however you want to look at that, puts people in place when you least expect it. Because one thing is, my specialty in chaplaincy was the mother unit. I was dealing with miscarriages, stillbirth, NICU death on a daily basis. That was my specialty. And because the fear was so powerful and my own rejection of myself, I didn't think I could talk to these nurses who did this day in and day out. Who could have said, hey, here's resources, and because under HIPAA laws here in America, they could still be protected. But I didn't think it that way. I was thinking, well, here's all the bad things, the domino effect of, well, if I say something, then someone else is going to find out. And years later, in having these discussions and being open, I've discovered that I did have friends and family support if I had just been open. The way shame and guilt weigh on us in traumatic situations, we don't feel that we can be open. And I had a good friend check in on me for a couple of days when I was in the process of that miscarriage, who eventually took me back to his home and his family one night and his mom was there and said, hey, she's got to see a doctor in the morning. Something's seriously wrong. And if it wasn't for him, and talking to a few friends that are physicians now, they have told me I probably would have died if it had not been for him.
Wow. Oh my God. It's really amazing. And hearing this story, like one of the first triggers that I kind of that went up within me in a way, and I've never experienced something even that close in my life, but I can just put myself in your position and to kind of question myself as, if it wasn't for that miscarriage, like, would you have kept the baby, or were you aware that, the energy that came from conceiving that baby was in nature toxic? And also you would have, you were 21, if I'm correct. And so you would have been,
yes, I was fine.
yeah, you would have been like alone in
Very
this
young.
and everything, right? So um, it's kind of like the universe kind of gift you in a way, even if it was tragic to lose that child. But I wonder, did you have that awareness while you were that young to tell yourself, like, were you ready did you want to keep the child, or did it cross your mind that you wanted to get an abortion? Like,
this episode is brought to you by Remembering You, the coaching program. As a published author of a spiritual self-help book, it was crucial for me to bring to my readers a program that would help them go deeper into their emotional healing and release childhood trauma. This program includes journaling therapy, soma breathwork, and hypnotherapy to help investigate, release, and reprogram. Go to lettersbyellie.com to learn more. And now, back to the show.
So I think we talked a little bit about this, and I grew up in the environment that, being adopted myself, very pro-life. And as I worked with the hospital, with the NICU, with the infant death, with stillbirth, my mind began to change and go, okay, wait a minute. There are medical reasons, there are physical reasons where an abortion may be necessary. Mm-hmm. At the same time, because I was in that battle within myself, being adopted, this child would have been the first blood relative I had ever met at that time. So
Yeah.
in one hand, I wanted to keep this child because of the adoption, because of where my mindset was. And the other hand, I was going, this, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do if I actually go into labor and no one knows? And I mean, there was all of those thoughts swirling in my mind. There was no right answer at that point. Now, 20 something years later, I still miss that child. I'm not going to say I don't recognize that. And miscarriage is such a unique process of grief, especially as women, because I have talked to men and they're like, we don't fully get it. We kind of get it. However, we're connected to something within us. And like you said, that energy, I would say either good or bad, because there was both energies there in that process. So that being said, it was hard. And for years, I went through the process of, well, because maybe I thought about an abortion, did I cause the miscarriage? And I had to really work through my guilt there. And I talked to a few therapists. We worked through some process. And this year I did something, every year was hard because she would have been 22. And I have a 19-year-old. So that gives you a space and time of how close things were. And I'm going, okay, there's a 22-year-old in heaven that I have never held, but yet my heart is still there. And I think for many women who have gone through this experience, they feel the same thing. I heard it daily when I was working as a chaplain in that process and in that internship and in that residency is, what do we do? Well, I talked with a counselor. I talked with actually the friend who saved my life, and we all came up with a plan. And by the way, he didn't know anything until 10 years after the fact that he had saved my life. We connected again 10 years later.
Wow.
And he was just like, I had no idea. So it was very special and a very heartfelt experience, but it was also very hard too, because the realization for both of us was there. But going back to this, when we talked about what could I do to help closure, because of course, again, when we have children that even pass away in a stillbirth or a neonatal death, or even later on in life, we have closure. We have a funeral. We have a wake or a way to mourn. But in the miscarriage, we don't have that. We're just basically said, okay, thank you. You're good to go, and we're sending you home to a home that perhaps had a nursery staff, had things set up. What do you do? Because now you're faced with, I'm coming home. And we've always told families, and I still say this to this day, don't let your family and friends tear those things down. You need to do it. It's part of the grieving process. Because you have something concrete to hold and grieve, whereas you don't really have that. And I didn't have that. So what I did is I went to Build-A-Bear and created this little bear that this year that I was like, okay, I don't know. And they gave me the heartbeat. So in the bear, you can stuff it yourself, pick out your bear, what it looks like. And they put a beating heart inside. And when I walked in there, I didn't think I would be emotional. I was fighting back the tears the entire time, because it was just a moment of, I thought I could do this. I didn't take anyone with me because I was like, oh, this will be easy, right? No. At the same time, it might have been good to be alone, because then I could process those emotions and not someone asking me, are you okay? Do you need support? Do you need this? It was that moment of, I need to be there. And and I said, I would bring this is what I created. And that's why I say, when you have something like this, it does give you the physical to hold on to. So anyone who has gone through a miscarriage or a loss, I would say create that space. Because even though that person is gone, there's something there that is significant to you.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Wow. And, as we as we were talking earlier as well, I touched on a kind of a sensitive subject that I thought I would bring on, and I wasn't sure to bring it up because it is a very sensitive subject for many people, and like you said, it can be very triggering. And there's something that I wanted, because I'm a very curious person as well, and I mean, I like to put myself in the position of someone. I feel like I'm very empathic, so the thing that I was pondering about, when I was hearing your story was having been in your situation, and probably not in the moment, of course, because at 21, we don't have that maturity yet developed, and that awareness as well developed within us when it comes to spirituality, I think. But looking back today, I think that you were able to, not only forgive the gentleman who had made this act, you also forgive yourself in some circumstances, because even though you didn't go and do anything wrong, absolutely not, and we're not responsible for this, but you elaborated on, it was important for you to go and find forgiveness for yourself as well. And then also be able to go and find a sense of great compassion for that gentleman that had done that because of a situation that he was also put in. So I would love for you to elaborate a little bit more on that, because I do believe that it's something that, people are going to be really, really, they have this easy to just blame on the people that have hurt other people. But I do believe that people that hurt other people are hurting themselves way more, because there are chances that they're so disconnected from who they are that they're not going to go through a process like you have gone through, which is you recognize that you had some healing to do and that you had power, right? And so I'd love for you to elaborate a little bit on that, to how did you come to this realization at one point and had to go and have that for yourself?
So one of the things in the process and the journey of healing, realizing really that it's not my fault. That was the first key element. And it took years to get there. It wasn't a 2-hour movie and everything looked great. It took over 10 years to really process and be honest about, I'm in a position where I continued to make poor choices because I carried the guilt, the weight, the unforgiveness, and the shame of the assault. Whereas I started unraveling that and realizing this is not healthy. And with the help of a good trauma therapist, and something we mentioned earlier when we were talking, that there are great therapists out there. But I strongly recommend to anyone who's gone through trauma, find a trauma therapist, because it's almost like the specialty of a doctor. You might see a cardiologist for your heart, but you wouldn't see a cardiologist for a foot doctor.
Yeah.
So the same metaphor applies in that situation. And as I was getting that process, and one of the things that frustrated me was the fact that I didn't have all the pieces in place. It was a puzzle. And I had a therapist say to me one time, she said, you don't have the picture, but you have all the pieces. It's almost like you're taking a puzzle, flipping it over backwards. I'm taking the picture away to do the puzzle, but you're doing it all the cardboard side, and you don't know which piece is which. They're all here. You just don't have them because you're not seeing what's in front of you, because it's not your fault. It's just, that's how I handed you the puzzle. And that was really enlightening to me, because I was like, oh, okay, I can move forward in this. From there, I sat with a mentor for a long time, and he had talked to me about the power of forgiveness. And when we really had this conversation over months of time, and from my faith standpoint, I follow the teachings of Jesus. And when that comes through, one, it's to influence with hope. And two, it's the forgiveness. He talks about forgiving 70 times 7. And at first I didn't understand that. But as I began the process of forgiveness, it was little things would come up, and I'm like, oh, I need to forgive that too. I need to forgive myself. I need to, even to the point, I need to forgive God, because why did he let this happen? He was supposed to protect me.
Yeah.
So all of that coming into play, and when we sat on a panel one night, I was with my mentor and we were doing a very similar conversation, but it was live with a bunch of people in the room. And we had said, okay, questions are open, but we have the right to shut them down and we'll answer privately. Well, someone asked, well, what would you do if you saw those gentlemen today? Because there was definitely more than one.
Yeah.
And I looked at my mentor, he looked at me, silent communication. And I knew, I was like, I would forgive them. I think everyone expected me to say something so different that night. However, the process of healing and forgiveness had come so far from 2002 to 2014 to even now in 24. The process and the journey continues. And there's still things, there's still triggers, there's still stuff that happens. But understanding that these young men, I have 3 boys and 1 girl. And I've got one that I've sent off to college. And we've had conversations now that I would not have thought to have with him. If you see something, say something. If you see something that you think you can stop, or go get police help, or go get protection or something for someone else, go do it. Mm-hmm. And we wouldn't have had that conversation before. And it may have been these young men did not know, because they may have been under threat of doing this initiation. And now, were they going to be implicated? Were they, I mean, there were so many different things. Yeah. So my compassion grew in a perspective that many people don't understand. But I look at it as, if God gives me compassion and grace, I should in turn extend that same compassion and grace. And that gives me a chance to influence this entire world with the hope that he has given me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like, you know, you talked about also, you know, being in the month of April. I think that it happened in the month of April, and that was the sexual assault month awareness.
Yes, it's Sexual Assault Awareness and Education Month is April.
So yeah, so having had all of these signs, like, you clearly were somehow meant to be an extreme force into this world for that, and help so many others go through, you know, go through all of it, and be able to have a voice, and be able to forgive themselves, and to navigate this in a much as best as they can, really. But having people like you know, having went through it, and you didn't just go through the assault, you went through a miscarriage as well, and so there was another loss there, and so, you know, the shame and the guilt went there as well. You know, so a lot of yes, it was a lot of trauma, but you have turned this into such a big gift for the world, and that's why it's so inspiring to me to share this story with everybody. And I just want to say thank you for that, because I think that right now, yeah, that you do have a program, or you have something that you're doing right now, if I'm correct with that, right?
So I'm working towards that. I'm actually in the process of writing a book on more detail. And part of that book is a journaling process. At the end of each chapter, or the end of a couple of chapters, depending on how the flow is there's a time for reflection and journaling. And because of my faith, it's very biblically set on how does God look at all of this? Mm-hmm. Because one thing I hear a lot of is churches, and not to knock churches, I think we're learning more about mental health, we're learning more about abuse, we're learning more about trauma. But back then we didn't have that. And now we're asking questions of, how does God see this? How do I adjust? How do my friends and my family help me cope? So in this process of writing this book, we've added a journal component that can either be done as a study together, or can be done separately with your own reflection, with questions that are hard but honest.
That's beautiful. It's a great way of, again, having that power back and remembering who you are. And I feel that you've explained this really nicely, as to, I think you did go within yourself, and remember that part of you very well, and took your power back really through all of it. So very beautiful. Thank you. There's something that I do with all of my guests, and and I'm going to be doing it with you as well. And I'm very eager to see which letter you're going to take. But I ask everybody to take a letter, a number, choose a number between 1 and 21, and that relates to one of my letters. And to see the perspective of this theme that's related to the letter. On your own journey of healing. And so I would ask you to choose a number between 1 and 21, please.
7.
7? Okay.
7.
I do not know my letters by heart. So, not yet. We're getting
I don't know my book by heart.
Okay, so letter number 7. Okay, so this letter is called "To Be or Not to Be, That Is Not a Question. To do or to be, that is the question." So what I'm trying to refer to here is that we are always doing, and we're not being enough of the time. And so the question shouldn't be about doing more, but about how can we be more. And I want to know, with your own journey and all of that, like, how did you, because of course you've been doing a lot, but like, how did you rediscover yourself through this and just really being, that's it, and not, doing more than that? Like, I'm just curious to see your perspective on this theme.
I think in the beginning, I was trying to do too much. I think it was I've got to be perfect. I've got to hide all of these secrets. And then as life unfolds, as help and good therapist and honesty and good support around me began to hear this story, I began to learn how to be. And from there, it took a little bit of a journey. I didn't talk about this. With a process of 10 years of healing and continue to heal. As we talked about, you're always healing, you're always growing. But it took 10 years to fully say, okay, I'm going to do and be. Ended up placing my entire story from a playwright position, wrote an entire script, and we put everything on stage a few years ago. And that was my doing, but it was also my being, because it allowed me to be a voice without feeling stifled or feeling that it was too much and being overwhelmed of, I can't handle this. Now I had community support. I had other people saying, oh, I've been there too. It's me too. It's not just hidden in the dark so much. And then as I've gotten older, as I said, I'm 43, part of being is learning how to rest. And that is a big thing, is taking time to just sit down. And maybe it's a half a day where I do nothing but watch Netflix for half the afternoon and I don't work. I work from home, so I have the flexibility to do that. Or I go to the lake, or I go to a place and walk, and I just allow myself to be at rest.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's beautiful. Thank you. I love that perspective. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. And you have a couple of things, like you were explaining. I would want to know where people can find you, because I think that people can benefit a lot from you. You're incredible. You're just a force of nature. And I'm so honored that you came on my show and just shared this so vulnerably. So I would love for you to just share, where can people find you?
So we are in the middle of rebranding and building the new website, but that's going to be unchainedhopecoaching.com. The reason I use the term unchained hope is we may feel chained, but we can never destroy or chain up hope. There's always going to be a way to break free.
Beautiful.
And then my Calendly will be on there. So that's, and I don't know that yet by heart.
Perfect.
Great. As you said, some things you don't remember quite yet.
Yeah, and that's perfect. And you know what? We're going to be putting some links as well in the description so that people can find you better too. So yeah, it's going to be great. Oh, thank you so much. All right. And I wish you all of the best with your book as well. And I hope that you are going to keep me posted with that, because I would love to have a copy.
Absolutely. Yes, we'll do. So, all right. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.